Welcome to Autogefuhl and the latest version of Volkswagen's T6, the T6.1. Well, let's get right down to it. The T6 made a pretty big splash when it launched, but that was a while ago now, and I think a lot of enthusiasts are more than keen to hold out until we get to the T7, so we can start seeing things like a full electric lineup. So has enough actually been changed on this car with the launch of the 6.1 to justify you upgrading if you already have a T6? Well, look at what's happened here. We have a much bolder, you could argue, simpler, bigger design at the front. So real accentuated features with these chrome strips and a bigger, bolder grille. And that integrates really nicely with this new headlight design. We now have LED daytime running lights and full optional LED headlights as well. 4.90 meters or 192 inches in length. There's not a huge amount that's gone on in the way of change of the design of the side, and I have to say I think that's a really great thing. The two-tone color scheme, you may remember, was introduced back with the T6, and given how large the side of this is for a passenger car, it does a really efficient job of breaking up that massive space. Clearly you can't mess with the structure because it's a commercial vehicle and therefore load space has been optimized throughout. So this to me does a really nice job of saying to anybody looking at this car, okay, it's a family car. It's not here for deliveries. Now, to go along with that, you can get the wheels at base in 16-inch steel, or they go all the way up to these, and they are of course 18-inch alloys. New for the 6.1, there's a range of different brand new wheels you can go for and some new color options too. So anyone who's a real aficionado will know that you are driving the latest model. For those who aren't quite that particular, well, I still think there's an awful lot to like about the side of this car. It's nicely pulled together, there's just enough styling detail in it to make you feel that attention's been paid, but it all speaks to its practical use. And of course, we all know where that starts getting really serious, and that's round at the back. Well, now we get round to the rear, and as you can see, other than the chrome trim, the design here has stayed pretty much faithful to the T6, and no bad thing for doing it. Now, obviously, this is where the rubber meets the road in terms of the use of these vehicles. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I own the Volkswagen Chiron at home. I have 3 children, and sometimes that can be a little frustrating because I can tell you that 3 children plus their friends plus football plus activities plus camping equipment plus there are many times when I wish I had one of these. When you're deciding what it is you want to buy, I think the important question to be asking yourself really practically is, what are you going to be using it for most? The Chiron is spot on perfect, or the Alhambra if you like the Seat version, if what you want to do for the vast majority of your time is just transport 5 people. But you soon start running into problems when you do use that 7-seat capacity, not least it isn't that much fun riding in the back of the thing. Now, the main difference that you get when you move up to this commercial vehicle is the amount of actual real usable space that you have. Look at that vast amount of room. Let's take a walk around the side and see what happens to that space in the rear. I think the most significant thing that you notice about the T6, or the 6.1 as it is now, are really the practical applications of this car. There are so many different ways in which you can configure it to get the most out of this space. Just one example of that would be the way in which you can spin these chairs. That might seem like something you're not going to be using that much, but if you're traveling with friends or children, it's really nice to be able to set up and actually eat some food with them. Now, what do you think, Tom? Is this going to work?
I hope so.
Have faith. I'm feeling good about this. So, this, I'm happy to see, It looks to me rather like a 1990s Dell servo. What do you think? That probably dates me a little bit. But look at the practical application that we have here. Cup holders, fully movable, and the magic touch is this. So you're traveling to where you're trying to get to, and unfortunately it's pouring down with rain. Well, not only is there a solution for that, but you can sit here and actually enjoy spending time just hanging out in the vehicle. So let's take a look and see if anything has changed underneath the hood. Well, of course, the glory days of having your engine mounted in the rear of your car have thankfully long since gone, but there have been lots of changes since those days, not least of which is the new lineup for the 6.1, and I can tell you that all of the available engines are 2-litre turbo diesels, and they are all Euro 6D temp. The engines go all the way from a 90 horsepower right up to the most powerful one which you're looking at right now, and that's 199 horsepower. That's going to be paired with anything from a 5-speed manual all the way up to, as we have here, a 7-speed DSG. Let's take a closer look inside. Well, as you can see, the key is a fairly standard affair. Door entrance looks and feels nice and solid. Now, I don't know if you saw Thomas's static review, but he was so enthusiastic about the sound of this door opening and shutting, I had to try it for myself. Well, Thomas might have a better attuned sense of hearing than I do. I can't detect how that is nicer than the T6, but I will say it's all very pleasingly solid. And that's really important when you're talking about an adaptation from a commercial vehicle. You don't want to feel like the vehicle was an afterthought. You want to feel like it was really finished with quality and the passenger in mind. And right from the moment you open this door, that's certainly the impression that you get. As with other Volkswagen cars, there are 3 basic standard trims you can get: the Trend line, the Comfort line, and the High line. This that you're now looking at is the Comfort line, so the middle of the 3 available and on offer. As you can see, there's an awful lot of attention to detail been put into making this feel like a quality prospect. So before you even sit in the vehicle, it really does resonate with design quality. Why? Well, obviously they put an awful lot more miles on their vehicles than a standard owner does, so those beneficial features are still baked into the design. Now we come to the heart of the differences with the 6.1 over the 6, and the first thing that I'm sure you have noticed is this brand new steering wheel. Well, I say brand new, you may know it from the new Passat and the T-Roc, but it is brand new for this car, and it really suits it well. These controls are very nicely laid out, so they're very intuitive and comfortable to use while driving, and the steering wheel feels great. You might think, but if it's designed for a smaller car, is it going to work so well in a larger one? I can absolutely tell you that it feels very, very nice indeed, and there's a very good reason for that. The steering has now been changed so it's electromechanical. Why would they do that? Well, it's because there are a raft of new assistance systems now available for this car, and you have to have an electromechanical steering system in order to activate them. Clearly, a lot of those systems, for example, lane assist, utilize the car's ability to take over control of the steering in that way. So that makes a significant difference, not only to getting yet more car-like features available on this larger class of vehicle, but also to change the feeling of the driving profile slightly. We have a 10.25 inch driver's display over here, fully digital, And over here we have the top version of the infotainment system, and that is 9.5 inches across. Now here you can choose between 6.5 is the entry-level model, or up to the top end, and that's what this is, and this comes in at 9.5 across. Now I suspect a lot of that's going to be in personal taste. In styling terms, this looks very nice indeed. If there is one good reason to go with the larger infotainment system, it's this. Now, I've always been a big fan of the way in which Volkswagen have integrated this rear camera technology. It always feels seamless and effortless. There are nicer looking ones available, but in terms of practical use and an easy way to digest the information that you're presented with, I think you have to go to quite a lot of effort to find something that is more usable. Now, a lot of people who've never driven one of these before assume that because it's a bigger van, it's harder to maneuver. I promise you it's not. If you guys haven't picked it up by now, I have to tell you, one of the things I love about vehicles that are based on commercial vehicles is the amount of simple thought that's gone into them that sometimes appears to be completely missing on cars. Now, this not only has an inductive charging pad, but what's a little harder for you to see is that in this phone pocket, just where the tips of my fingers are two soft rubber gills that then gently compress down on the top of this phone. That really nicely holds it in place. You might think that this is a slightly unconventional place to start a driving test, and you'd be right. This is a single track farm road running alongside one of the larger canals here in Amsterdam. But I think it's actually an excellent place to start to get an impression of this car. Why? Well, if I think about the first thing that this car makes me want to do, it's load up the kids, a load of equipment, and take it off camping. And camping always means, or it does if you're doing it right, taking the car into places you wouldn't necessarily take a car. Well, this isn't the roughest terrain, but it is a really good place to be able to show you how a little bit of uncomfortable handling works on this car. But as we move out of our camping environment and onto a more natural, regular driving environment, which is just a standard road, let's see quite how much of that experience we can get out of the vehicle. Well, I have to tell you, the gearbox is very smooth and easy. I'm really enjoying the new steering wheel. It's incredibly sympathetic. Let's see what the acceleration's like in this bus. And there you are. Speed limit 70 on this road, and there we have it. Now, not only was that extremely pleasant, but I think you could hear when you listened, it didn't sound like the engine was going to a huge amount of effort, and I certainly wasn't using everything that it had. So, as long as you're comparing this with a van-like experience, it's comfortable, it's smooth, it's easy, the DSG gearbox is great, and the larger engine provides the oomph that you need. I would never consider this with the smallest engine going, but if you're interested in fuel economy, the difference between the smallest and the large in driving experience should be around about 2 litres per 100 kilometers driven. So, it's good on the highway, it's good off-road. How does it behave around town? Well, come on, what do you want me to say? The number one use of the vehicle that this is based on is as a commercial delivery vehicle. And where do they spend 90% of their time? Delivering goods around town. So it's exactly as you would expect it to be, which is to say it's really easy. Higher up vehicles make for very pleasant drives indeed when you're out around town. The gearbox is great. You've got more than enough nip in the engine. As I say, we have the larger one and that really helps. And the handling of the car is superb. So I think a fairer question is, how does it compare to its competitors and its predecessor? Well, I think I really would be quite hard pushed to notice a significant difference in terms of how the steering behaves. Everything here is very pleasing indeed. Versus the competition, well, again, Volkswagen have been doing this a long time. And I think over time, this car has more or less been, I'm loath to use the word perfected, but I think you know what I mean. It's very nice indeed. So if you have to do lots of driving around town, it's almost a no-brainer. So put the three together and what do you end up with? If you've got lots of people and stuff that you need to transport, you may just be looking at your ideal car. So there's really only one component left to talk about, and that's the price. I really like this van. The T6 I thought was fantastic. The 6.1, well, you know what, the passenger assistance systems are definitely a good inclusion, so I'm happy to see them going there. The styling has definitely been sharpened and tweaked a little bit. Personally, I'm most excited for when we get to the T7 to see what can be achieved with the fully electric platform. It is a huge amount of money, but then it's also a huge amount of car. In terms of what this will offer you for residual value, there are many cheaper options out there, but they won't hold their value anything like as well as this does. And it's going to give you an awful lot of happy driving. Thank you for taking the time to watch. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as we've enjoyed making it, and we hope we'll see you again soon.